Good work for nothing. Feels like we're in Hollywood. Okay, happy to call to order the September 14th, 2020 meeting of the Albany Arts Committee. We have a pretty nice agenda tonight, so I guess we can get started with a call to order and a roll call. I'm happy to welcome a new member to our committee. Please correct me if I'm mispronouncing this, but member Gack, Aaron Gack?
Gatch, Aaron Gack.
Yeah. Okay, nice to meet you. I'm sure everyone welcomes you and is glad to see you. Happy to have you on board. And thank you to Andrew Kellogg, who had served previously in your stead. Can no longer do so, but thank you all to him for his work on the committee. That said, a quick roll call. Do we have Cheryl, member Black? Are you here? I see that you're muted, but I do see that you're here.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Member Rose?
Here.
Is here. Member Goodman?
Here.
Member Holland?
Here.
And I am here as well. It looks like, I believe we're missing one seat, and I believe Jibo has resigned. Is that correct, staff?
That is correct. And currently they have put out his seat, so they're accepting nominations, and I don't have the exact dates, but hopefully by the October meeting, that seat will be filled.
Great, thank you. Moving on quickly, item 2, we have the approval of the minutes from our July meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes, or would anyone like to raise any questions, concerns, etc.?
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Okay, the minutes are approved from July. And we move on to item 3, public comment. Is there any public comment? Man, we're...
Yes, she's a consultant though, Eva.
I see Rebecca Black is here and has her hand up.
Is she speaking now for public comment, or?
Let's bring her in and see. I know she's going to be at 6, I think it's 6-1 is her item.
Hi, Poet Laureate Black.
Hi,
Okay,
guys.
go ahead.
I think you can see me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you look like
Yes.
a chessboard with a parakeet.
Okay, that's me. I don't know how to change that on a webinar format, but I am here ready and waiting.
Great.
You will not be able to share your video for public comment period. When
Okay.
the item is up, then you will be able to share your screen.
Great, thank you.
Is there any other public comment? No? Okay, if not, then I think we can move on to item 4, announcements. Does the committee or the staff have any announcements they'd like to share with the committee and with our viewers? Jenny?
I would like to say hi, everybody. I would like to say that this is my last meeting on the Arts Committee. I really, really appreciate being on this committee. I like every single one of you very, very much, and it's been a real eye-opener. I'm very pleased to say that Cheryl Black has agreed to take on the sculpture loan program, and I think she'll...
Oh, go Cheryl.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled about that, and we meet regularly at Hal's when the weather permits, and I will give her my entire binder about the sculpture loan program. But Cheryl, it relieved so much for me when you said you would take that on. I'm so pleased. Thank you very, very much.
It's my pleasure. I just want to see it move forward.
Yeah, as do we all. And I want to say also to Liam and to Eva, I really enjoyed getting to know you. I enjoyed very much working with both of you. And that you've been a real mentor. You've really helped me through this process. Thank you so much.
We'll miss you, Jenny.
What is it, Peter?
We will miss you.
Yeah, I'll miss you too. I actually will really miss all of you. It's been really great. But after, babies won't be babies forever.
Hey, tell that to my children.
I know.
I would enjoy that.
Dial them up, Liam. I will tell them.
Well, Jenny, I want to just say thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you too. And we hope that this isn't the end, that we hope that you will be
Absolutely.
a participant and chime in whenever. You've been such a great resource and such a cheerleader for arts in Albany. And we just can't thank you enough. We're going to miss you.
And
thank
you. And if there's something that comes up, if there's a project that comes up on the Arts Committee that you think I could be helpful with, don't hesitate to ask. You know me. I will let you know if I can. And if I can, I will.
Okay, wonderful. And I just wanted to extend, this is kind of a funny circumstance, but our new member, is it Gatch?
Yeah.
Got it? Okay. Aaron, welcome aboard. We wish we were seeing you in person, but we're excited. And I don't know, do you want to take a few minutes to just kind of talk about yourself, putting you on the spot, and why you were interested in becoming part of the Arts Committee?
Sure. I won't take up too much time here, but really, you have Jenny to thank and or blame for recruiting me / twisting my arm to join you here. So she really had wonderful things to say about everyone on the committee and the committee itself. So so she is a big part of why I'm here today. But in my own kind of personal life and artistic practice, I have been teaching public art and community-based art and social practices and collaborative art at California College of the Arts for the last 13 years, going on 13 years, and at a number of other schools in the area, including Stanford and UC Santa Cruz and San Francisco Art Institute. And in my own personal artistic practice, I make public work and socially engaged work that has been shown throughout the United States and Europe and locally at Southern Exposure and the Lab and SF MoMA. So I have some experience in the field, and I'm very invested in the subject of public art. And I've been living in Albany for the last about 20 or 21 years. And I have a daughter at Albany Middle School. And I'm just really excited to bring my voice and experience to the Albany Arts Committee and hope that I can listen and collaborate and participate in some meaningful way.
Aaron, you don't sound qualified at all for this work. Well, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you, and I'm sure there'll be plenty to work on, and I'm sure you'll have some invaluable contributions. So thank you for making the time.
May I make a request, Brandon?
Of course.
Would you mind if we move the agenda item 6.4 fall into haiku so it follows the Poet Laureate, since Becca, I think, would have input on that as well?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Real quick, before we move on, are there other announcements or presentations?
Did we mention also that Zebo had to resign? He's off to college in person, so he had to resign from the committee. Yeah, so we're looking for his replacement at this point too. So.
Okay. I was also going to just mention quickly, we received an email this afternoon about the utility boxes in El Cerrito. El Cerrito launching a program to decorate, a pilot program to decorate utility boxes along San Pablo. That's something that we've also looked at in the past. And even maybe, as you mentioned, that could go on a future agenda item. We could circle back to that, study what they've done, maybe copy what they've done to a degree and see what might be possible there. So I don't have the website in front of me, but if you do a quick search, I'm sure you could find it. We could take a look at some time and see what could be done here.
I believe Cheryl and I both remember the times when the Arts Committee tried to do a similar project.
I know Andy was working on this. I know we can't formally discuss this here, but isn't there a problem between who owns the boxes? Is that a difference with Albany and other cities?
I believe it is, and also that we don't have that many boxes.
Okay.
There are some that we, again, not the right format, Eva, so you can stop us. But And it's not that there are none. There's just not many.
Okay. Okay. It's all good stuff to know.
We can put it on maybe one of the next agendas to discuss further.
Yeah. Other announcements? Okay, moving on to item 5, presentations. No? Okay, takes us into the bulk of the agenda, 6.1 Poet Laureate. And we have Poet Laureate Black with us to provide an update and talk about potentially a new Poet Laureate. Is that correct? Okay, I would turn it over then to Poet Laureate Black and Peter, if you also have additional information or context to provide.
Well, I'd just like to thank Becca for all the amazing work she's done during her term as Poet Laureate. She will certainly be missed. How many years have been? It's been 4? 4, right. So this is the end of the 4th year. So that's great. So why don't I was hoping, or I guess the committee was hoping that you could just maybe give us some of your perspective on what it was like to be the City of Albany Poet Laureate, and you have suggestions for what we could do that you think would improve the program, and what your hopes are maybe for the program looking forward, and what you'll take away from it. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see you all.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Okay. I am happy to consult going ahead with the Poet Laureate program. I think it's a great thing for Albany to do. We have a lot of good examples to follow from El Cerrito in particular with their Poet Laureate program. And I'm happy to get more information about that and see how we can provide resources to future Poet Laureates for programming. So I think, going ahead, seeing what Albany's resources are, having some more resources in place, if possible, would be great. I was able to break through into programming with the library. There were a lot of ups and downs with that road over the past 4 years. In January, we had a flagship reading with a poet from the East Coast. We were able to partner with the Marin Poetry Center and Dominican University at the Albany Library to bring this nationally known poet to read. That was a wonderful event. That was our last big event. We had a reading group with her. We were able to get the library to buy books. I think the library bought 6 copies of her 3 books. We had a reading group. So I felt like that event was a wonderful, wonderful beginning to really working with the library. I worked very closely with the library manager over the past 2 years. So obviously post-pandemic, getting that program back on its feet will be wonderful. It's unclear whether that's the purview of the Poet Laureate or of me. So that's something to kind of work out. But I think it was a big step in the right direction for the library reading series. So I'm definitely proud of that. Let's see, my new puppy is barking at the door, my pandemic puppy. So to summarize, going forward, coming up with some programmatic options for a Poet Laureate based on El Cerrito and based on Albany's abilities would be great. Number 2, sorting out the library reading series. I'm happy to work with a future Poet Laureate. I'm happy to do it myself, completely open to that. And yeah, doing it for 4 years was great. I wish I'd had more time to focus on it. My kids are still 7 and 9. I guess at the beginning they were 3 and 5. So maybe in another 20 years, I can come back around again, or so it was just a pleasure. And working with Peter on the Fall into Haiku was amazing. I have never been involved with a public program that has been so cheap, so seamless, and it provided so much bang for its buck. I think we had one complaint over 3 or 4 years, and lots of joy. So that program is magic, and very, it's a lot of work for Peter, a little, less work for me. And it serves us really, really well. I think that's the majority of it.
Jenny, Member Holland?
Thank you. Becca, I'd like to ask you, as part of the Fall into Haiku program, we did those readings at the library. Do you remember how they grew in size from year 1 to year 4?
Oh, last fall.
That was amazing.
It was phenomenal. We had 80 people in that library room. We had like an 80-something-year-old person and an 8-year-old reading.
Yeah.
This was last fall. So we got our groove. We figured out the right programming for that event, the right in-person programming last fall. And it was a wonderful event. So exponential growth.
Yeah.
Becca, what has been your reaction of trying to work with the schools, teachers, classrooms?
I have not really done so. I asked at my kids' school, Cornell, about it. They have such a wonderful 5th grade poetry program in place. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I felt like there wasn't a huge need for poetry programming in Albany schools.
You mean because it was already there?
It's already in place. The teachers have it down in the middle school and in the elementary school. I did think having the high school judges for Fall into Haiku was adding value. Allowing a high school student to experience judging an arts contest and the questions that are involved in that is a great pedagogical thing for a high schooler. While I was Poet Laureate, the Poets in the Schools figure, I forget his name, passed away. So I don't know what's going on with that program right now. But I did not feel it was a huge need. I felt like Fall into Haiku actually served that. And we served children through Fall into Haiku quite well. Peter and I decided to publish every child's haiku that entered.
Except
as a matter
one,
of course.
I think, which was too weird.
No off-color ones, but yeah. So I think that served the children of Albany really nicely. And it wasn't through the schools necessarily. Well, I had classrooms do it. I would approach teachers and have classrooms enter the contest. I gave workshops to a couple of Girl Scout troops over the years. Yeah. So we involved children, but it wasn't necessarily through the schools.
We need to. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eva.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to thank you, Becca, for your time in 4 years. You kind of we had the same tenure here, and you've been a great resource. And I've learned so much from you, and it's been fun to see just your passion and poetry and bringing it to Albany. And I think seeing you and the branch manager at the library work together, there seems like you really started some. I know you say that would have liked to have dedicated more time to it. And I think we all understand, but I think you did so much in your time. So thank you. And I know we'll see you. I know we'll see you again too.
Yeah,
So,
I feel like some relationships were really cemented, and I think those will continue post COVID. Yeah.
So in terms of having a successor to you, would you be willing to help sort through applications and put the word out to find someone who might apply for
Of course.
the next? I'm
Of course.
not sure when. I guess. Well, since your term is ending, I guess we can put that out at any time, assuming the
No,
committee
I think this
feels
is a
we
question
wanna
for the
do it.
committee. Do you have to have consecutive poet laureates?
No, there's no rule about
Do
it.
you? Yeah.
If we don't find someone suitable, I don't think we would fill the position.
Yeah, I think that's wise. I can talk to my friends that have been El Cerrito poet laureates as well, and I don't know what the El Cerrito Arts Committee is thinking in terms of continuity, but it's quite nice to have them right there to bounce ideas off of.
Sure, yeah.
And what is your sense of poets in Albany, and
I
how
don't.
many are they just like waiting to get into this position? Are we going to have to? Do you have any recommendations?
No one has approached me and said, oh, I'd like to do this after you. I'm sure, given our demographics, there are some wonderful people. I do think it is wise to choose well and not just choose someone.
Well, last time we did this, we didn't have a lot of applicants.
Yeah.
And so we've done this. You're the third one.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to expect. Following up from that question, though, prior to the pandemic and everything closing down, Albany was kind of developing a bit of a reputation as a poetry center in the East Bay. The library program was kind of a draw for poets from
it had been
around.
It had a reputation for 15 years. Yeah.
And so it had been, been growing, and I kept hearing that. Is that still the case?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The library, Friends of the Library programming and ability to bring in and pay poets like $150 a night, or, I think we paid $500 or $600 was our share of the national poet. So having that little chunk of cash to bring people to Albany is significant. Yeah, I mean, Catherine Taylor did a great job with
right.
Running the program for 10 or 12 years. So that's their, that will come back, I think.
And are you involved in that coming back? And
well, as I said, it remains to be seen. I mean, I haven't spoken with Rachel Scher in the past month or two. So I have to say I wasn't interested in doing virtual poetry readings. There's so many wonderful virtual poetry readings happening that are free, that anyone can go to, that it didn't seem like a good use of my time or the library's time to schedule those.
right.
I think being in person, if it has to be small, when the library can open for a 30-person or 20-person reading, that will be what the library would want to do.
And is there anything happening at the St. Albans? They've got that new arts program going there.
Well, they have a new rector, so I'm not sure.
I can speak to that. St. Albans has been, the Calliope Project
Right.
has been putting all through the pandemic. They've got their sound system in place, and they've been having live music on the weekends, and you can buy a ticket, and even some of them you can even go and sit on the sidewalk if you want and go listen to people play. But
I should do that. Yeah.
Oh, it's been lively. It's really high quality music. Like super high quality music. It's weird because there's no audience, so you're looking at it online. So that's a very weird situation for any musician to be in. But I think they've done a fantastic job, and they've kept it going. They immediately got their sound equipment together. Immediately.
I was asked to run their poetry program, and I said I would do it, and then it was canceled. So I don't know what their poetry programming is at the moment.
Right. Okay.
I think there's no poetry programming there at the moment.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Becca.
Thank you, Becca.
Guys. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's great to see you. Take care.
Don't hang up. Stick around for the next one.
Yeah. I'll stick around, of course.
Okay.
Spring into haiku.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so with that, we'll move up 6-4 to become 6-2, fall into haiku. Peter?
Chair, we do have a public.
Oh.
Pardon me?
There's a public comment.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for giving me the public comment. I know I was a couple minutes late here. A few positive suggestions. I noticed our big bellies on Solano, even in front of the city hall, especially the one in front of the city hall. There's a poster taped to the outside, and it's like about COVID or something. And it's been there since February. Cobwebs growing on the city hall's big belly. Can we put a piece of art there and make the city hall look good on these big bellies instead of cobwebs and some old taped poster? It looks highly unprofessional in front of our city hall. We have all these big bellies on Solano that we're not using. We're not even putting surveys in there for the survey portions. We're not doing anything with our big bellies. They're all blank. Why not put some children's artwork in there? You know, they're going to school right now, but their kids are unable to see each other. So maybe you could put a kid's artwork in a big belly so the entire community gets to see some kid's artwork or something. You know, I think we could utilize those big bellies and make our trash cans look pretty, right? Make our trash look good. I'm not sure what Albany's art program is doing for the kids in school right now. I'm not sure if you're even donating $1 goodie bag for some colorful pencils or some colorful markers, some tools to draw with, some art supplies. Or are you guys just not doing anything for the kids of Albany to help them be creative? You're just not supplying any sidewalk chalk. I'm just curious if the art committee can have a recommendation to give kids in these tough times some supplies. And also, it's kind of late, probably maybe 5-6 years now, but we have these sculpture projects, right? The big one was in Sprouts. Inside the parking lot, they had that tree. It's a metal tree, right? By that picnic bench in the middle of the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Now that's supposed to be an art project. But when the people came in to do their presentation, they brought a model, and the poles were supposed to be blue. Okay. That whole situation was supposed to be blue. And I'm sure we paid extra for that, and they were never painted blue. The poles are gray. That's ugly. It was supposed to be an art project with colors and colorful. And when it came down to it, it was gray, and it's still there with no checks and balances. So if you're going to do these sculpture projects, make sure they follow through with what their models present. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah, very much for your comments. Does anyone have a response or reaction or any follow-up?
Oh, well, I will. I'm not sure we follow up on public comment, but I will be talking a little bit about the big bellies regards to the fall into haiku or the spring into haiku program.
Okay, let's move on to fall into haiku then, 6.2.
Okay. Well, thanks. So I don't suppose you all had a chance to read my summary of the program, but
You did.
I did.
I
oh,
did.
good. Okay, well, good. Then I will I will skip over it. So I didn't get around to doing Fall into Haiku this year for a variety of reasons. But in discussion with Beck and following from some of her suggestions, I kind of like to reinvigorate it in next year to reintroduce as Spring into Haiku. I think with the maybe with the pandemic on the wane by then, people will be feeling a spring in their step at least, and getting back to some healthy thoughts about the environment, so we're not all choking on smoke all the time. And pretty much the same as previous, where we'd have yard signs throughout the city for several weeks, so people can admire them and show off their work to their family and friends. But one additional component that I really wanted to add, and which I actually tried to do last April in conversation with the city, was a public-facing Facebook group that would be ongoing and active, and not simply just a place where people passively go to read whatever other people, what the city is posting on their behalf, but to actually submit poems and have them looked at by other people and viewed and commented on. I think it's a bit of a problem for the city to manage a Facebook group. I've heard various objections to it over the years, but what I'm suggesting to them is that it be a public group, but with a private membership restricted to Albany citizens only, and that every post, every membership request and every post be moderated and approved by me, by Becca, by anyone else who's participating and helping to run the project. And that way we'd have a very large and growing collection of poems, some of them very, very occasional, but they'd be there forever, and they'd be there kind of to promote the idea of poetry, to promote Albany and poetry, and to bring a lot of people into it that might not have made it during the limited window of submission time that is normally available to them, or they just want to try some stuff out and put stuff up there. So to me, it's a logical next step for our program to be larger and more inclusive. And I tried to figure out some way to address the city's concerns about liability, about things going up there that are embarrassing that have the city name on it. I completely understand why the city is reluctant to do that. I'm hoping that a public Facebook group with a private membership would be the way to go. And to me, it's important that we do that if the program is going to move forward. Most of the rest of the program, I think, would pretty much operate as it did in the past. So it'd be up to us, me working with Eva and people from the city to get a submission page up to solicit contributions from people. Even if we have a Facebook page, a lot of people hate Facebook, or that they don't live online the way other people do. So we still have to have a regular online posting. We also have to be able to take submissions by mail, and those come in to me by way of an Excel file. We sort through everything, and from there it's kind of a straightforward process of selecting poems and then going ahead and place them on yard signs and getting them out. The other thing that might be different, and this is from one of Becca's suggestions, was instead of we have the yard signs, then we would also laminate up 11 by 17 sheets of poetry, and those would go into the big bellies throughout the city. We filled up almost every big belly, except the ones that are really, really disgusting. And Jeremiah's right; they are just full of cobwebs. They're never cleaned. They're really gross. But some of them are active enough that they're actually usable, or they haven't been graffitied up and made unreadable. So we get about I think around 40 or so big bellies around the city, and that also gets them out into the parks. So we continue to do that, but not necessarily tied in all the time to the yard sign part of the program. That is, we'd be able to use the big bellies around the year to decorate the streets and to bring poetry to the city throughout the year, and then to have the yard signs being kind of a more special event. Becca also at one point suggested printing up some of these poems and then giving them to merchants around the city and ask them to post them in their shop windows. And I think that's a great idea because they're very visible that way and protected. So they might stay up for quite a while. So we would take this haiku program and have a seasonal focus for the yard signs and for a particular event, but then we would also have the Facebook group, and we would also have some occasional poems placed around the city throughout the year to make it kind of an ongoing event. So that's kind of what I'm suggesting. I provided the budget from 2019, and as far as I can tell, the cost of the yard signs themselves haven't gone up very much. The city provides the lamination, even maybe you're still willing to do that. So it's as Becca was saying before, the cost of doing this is quite minimal.
I think it's great. I love the idea of moving to spring this year. I think that makes a lot of sense. I would suggest, Peter, that we put out an announcement that we're not doing it this fall and that we're moving it to spring, so we keep that interest going. People will start looking for it in the fall and it won't be there. So we need to let them know that that's.
Yeah, I will do that. If this is approved, I will definitely do that.
Sounds perfect to me.
So Peter, if we did it in spring of 2021, would we also revert back to fall of 2021 as well?
No, I don't think so. I think we would maybe do spring for a couple of years or summer. You know, the next year we could do another season if we wanted to, or just have a whole different theme.
In a lot of ways, with the contest schedule, spring into haiku makes a lot more sense for involving people, school kids.
Right.
Right, because we were opening submissions in July, closing them quite early in September.
Right, we missed them.
So having submissions run through the fall would actually be better for involvement.
You mean, sorry, you mean to say for spring, the submissions period?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, moving submissions to spring would be moving the event into spring. Having submissions in the fall and winter would actually be easier and better and more inclusive, I think.
Okay.
We'd also have less of a weather problem, I think, with things getting wet and that kind of
right.
stuff.
Maybe less so. Yeah.
Less problem there.
Yeah.
Peter, I generally thought what you put down and summarized and are proposing was great. I have no problem with it. I have a tangential question out of curiosity, and this also does in kind of to the Poet Laureate discussion. Are the haikus archived in any way or any form? I understand that's part of the motivation for the Facebook page, but is there an existing archive of all the haikus that have been?
Well, the city, I think at the end of each program, I would send the finished poems to the city, so they have them, and I certainly have a copy of everything. I think you're right. One of the ideas was to have a living archive of the poems. The city website is not set up for that sort of thing, so at the moment I'm not exactly sure where it would live. One of the other ideas that was floated a while back was to have have them printed up in a book that could be sold as sort of a fundraiser. And the city, I mean, because of the way that the submissions were solicited, the city has the poet owns the poems, copyright, but the city has the right to use them however it wants for as long as it wants. So there's plenty of different ways that we could use them in the future. We sort of have a roundup of them. So there is an archive. It's just we haven't done anything with it yet.
It's a private archive. It's not publicly accessible at the moment.
Right.
And I'm sure right now there's not so much the funds or the time for an archive project, but I mean those would be really valuable historically. I think down the line, being able to.
Well, I think that was the idea, because the whole idea of having these haiku is that they're very occasional, of the moment. And they're a really good snapshot of where the mentality of the city is at any particular point in time. So over a period of 20, 30 years, God knows this may go on that long. I mean, it'd be kind of an interesting one, because, a couple of years ago, they were talking about fires. There were a lot of ones about fires, which of course is apropos this year.
It will be again.
Yeah.
Eva, and Liam, I mean, is the city, again, this isn't a priority, I understand, for the city right now, but does the city have historical or archival capacity? Does it do this in any shape or form? Record and store information like this?
This has come up a few times, and it's one of those things that unfortunately just hasn't happened yet. But I think the city can work with the committee and figure out a way to make this happen. To echo what you said, right now probably isn't the time that it's going to happen, but maybe that gives us some time to think through of what it would look like, how, if it would be searchable, if it would just be by year, if it would be by author, if it would be, how we would want it to look. And maybe the committee already has those ideas too, but I think we should
I would think
keep it on the table.
volumes in the library could be possible.
Printed.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, it's very easy to do.
Sure.
Maybe the Albany Historical Society might have some interest in it also.
And we have pictures. I couldn't guarantee that we have 4 years of pictures of all of them, but every year when we've put them up, especially when staff has put them up, we've taken pictures of kind of where they were and the haiku as well. And then even Peter's had great ideas about promoting it. There was even like a haiku a day to get ready for submissions one year. So I do know that in staff files and stuff, we do have a lot of past actual pictures of the signs of haikus as well that we can kind of build and continue on this spring if we have the
and Liam, I think the Google Maps are still online, right? And if you click on the Google map, you get the location of the poem and the poem itself and the person who wrote it.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that since fall of 2019, but we put a lot of work into it. So,
other questions, concerns, comments for Fall into Haiku? It wasn't clear to me, Peter. Are we looking to endorse or support a motion?
Well,
Jenny has her
you're
hand
the
up.
chair, but I think maybe this is part of our work project, so I don't know. It seems to me like maybe you want to vote on it and say go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to say that this has been really one of the best projects that we've done. It's been really great, and been really great to be part of, as well as to watch you do it. So should I make a motion to adopt Peter's new plan? Is that what we need to do?
Give it a stab.
Okay.
Take a stab at it.
I move that we adopt Peter's new plan to move fall into haiku, into spring into haiku, and that we pursue the idea of creating a Facebook group that is for Albany residents with moderators, and that we continue to grow the poetry program in Albany.
And I feel like we should stick to, at this point, I have to probably do some more research on the Facebook side of it.
Okay.
So if we can keep the motion to just moving fall into spring.
Okay.
So
For
adopting
now,
the plan to move the fall into haiku.
I will say that. So I move that we adopt the plan to move fall into haiku, into spring into haiku, and with intense gratitude.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Chair.
Aye.
Yeah.
Chair, it needs to be roll call votes.
Okay.
All motion virtual meeting needs to be roll call votes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I believe, City Clerk, does someone need to approve the motion and then second, or is the person who makes the motion?
No, just the motion and a second, and then roll call vote for everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to go in the order I see. Member Holland?
Yes.
Member Black?
Yes.
Member Gatch? You're muted.
Sorry, yes.
I knew it. Member Goodman
Yes.
and Member Rose.
Yes.
And I also vote in favor.
Great, thank you.
And with that, I believe we move on to what is now 6-3, the Sculpture Loan Program. Jenny, you're going to provide an update?
I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier.
Oh,
That-
and let
Sorry.
me stop you. It does look like there's a public comment, I believe, on this.
Great.
Okay.
Is the public comment on,
The public comment should be on fall into haiku only.
Correct. Yes. Fall into haiku. I mean, fall into spring haiku, right? Spring into haiku. Yeah, fall into haiku makes sense. You know, have a nice trip. See you next fall. You're falling into haiku. But when you spring into haiku, I'm just not sure if that makes sense. But we're just kind of just going with the flow here, right? Spring into haiku, it sounds fine. But also, you know, I would want to incorporate it. I know you mentioned it, to incorporate it in the school's agenda, like in the art class. Have this be incorporated in the school's teaching. You know what I'm saying? Like in their curriculum, right? So that way, every student in Albany has a chance to get this there, and we could see, you know, everybody, not just people, citizens who aren't enrolled in school, get to do the spring into haiku. Also, if it would be nice to make it online as well, since everything's online, to display the haikus online, like you were mentioning. So, and save some of the big bellies for other use, right? I mean, I'm sure you can't hog them all, but at least we're making progress. I know that some of them are disgusting. Public Works is actually supposed to come by and power wash. I'm sure you could recommend they come by and they power wash the big belly and they clean it. So maybe the most dirty ones are the ones we should focus on, to beautify those first and to make those clean and get those cobwebs off. Otherwise, I mean, unless you call that modern art, right? The cobwebs.
Mhm.
So, you know, people might like spiders. But Halloween's coming up too, right? So maybe those cobwebs on those big bellies are kind of appropriate. So, but anyway, just get the kids involved. I know they got a lot going on, but it'd be nice to get at least the kindergartners or preschoolers or elementary some art projects to be involved in. And then their art, you know, the haiku could be in the city. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And with that, we can move on to 6-3 Sculpture Loan Program. Jenny?
Thank you. The Sculpture Loan Program is where it is where it has been, which is we have 3 sculptures that have been voluntarily submitted and that we have approved that we would like to display. We have a location, we have the locations, and we have specs and requirements at the city, at Public Works. So it's not been Public Works' most fervent assignment. For what we've been trying to get them to do this. We're trying to have concrete pads to put these sculptures on for quite a while. But that being said, that seems to be the sticking point right now. When I give the notebook to Cheryl, she's going to have all the letters that I've written to the artists. They're still on board. They would love to have their work out and displayed. And if that changes, I don't see how it's going to change. So as soon as Public Works can put the concrete pads in, then we can put the sculptures up. And these are just the sculptures. This is just the Sculpture Loan Program that we did along the Greenway. They were also been thinking about sculptures up and down Solano Avenue, because that's our task is to beautify Solano Avenue. So I think that we have to move our thinking to that. That won't need concrete pads because we have concrete sidewalks. Cheryl and I have done an extensive survey of the sidewalks on Solano Avenue, and we know where we can recommend them. I'm sure she's going to carry that on. And that's where it's at right now.
Thank you. Are there questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, notes, anything? Peter or Jenny or Peter, whichever one.
Peter, go. Peter, go.
Peter.
You're mute. Mute.
I'm just wondering where Public Works head is at these days, as far as doing this.
Yeah. How do I answer that? I don't know. Maybe is my most honest answer. Is that you know, given that staff is working hard on essential programs and you know, their priorities have shifted just given in the last 6 or 7 months now. It's definitely on their list, but it definitely, there's higher priorities. That being said, this is a conversation that it comes up often, and it will continue to come up. And we've kind of worked, my hope is that we've worked a few things out that I can work with a specific staff member who they really haven't had a dedicated staff member in the past to deal with projects like this. So fingers crossed, you know, as things start to settle down, that this can become a priority. And I think as Member Holland mentioned too, that in the Arts Committee work plan is looking at future sculpture loan program. And if perhaps it's something where finding existing concrete to tie into might be, you know, it's still going to involve Public Works. They still have to be available. It's still a, I don't know if I would call it a construction project, but they do need to be involved with it. So, but maybe that's something to look at that we've learned from this experience too.
Another thing I'd like to add is that I think when we go to work on Solano Avenue, it won't just be Public Works, it will also be traffic and safety, because we're going to need sight lines around corners. And I think traffic and safety it's one of the things Cheryl and I found was that we really needed everybody be able to see around those corners. And then I have one question. I really hate to throw this at you because no one's going to be able to answer it, but I'm personally really loving all the planting displays on Solano Avenue right now. And I wondered if any of our publicly funded money could go to permanent planting displays, whether they would be considered public art. And because we could I know that we have a great floor, we have a great nursery right on Solano Avenue. We just have a lot of opportunity to make that a much more beautiful street. And so if I were still on the committee, I would start exploring that.
You are still on the committee. You have 15 more days.
That's true. I can explore that.
Get all your ideas.
I can look into the legality of that. I'm not 100% sure that is what our ordinance covers.
Public art. I mean,
yeah.
in my understanding of it, it is permanent, it is public, it is art that would stay there, and it does have a function. And if it's something that we would allow a business, right, it's that in lieu funds that the ordinance calls out. So if we would allow a business, let's say, you know, Belmont Village, to put out beautiful artistic planters, then, you know, it's something that can be considered. But we can definitely look into it. If the committee is interested in doing it, the process would be that they would have to amend their work plan or add it to the next work plan.
Sure.
Given that we've already missed that deadline for the 2019-2021 work plan, but it could be for the next one. I do know that we have put some planters out on Solano Avenue, and the tricky part for us is who waters those. Yeah. So also going hand in hand with that, just something to think about is getting a dedicated business then perhaps the Arts Committee works with to, all right, we'll go halvesies with you, or we'll pay for it and you water it, or something like that.
Well, I'll make it my business. I know I was thinking about that too. I'll make it my business to find out if it's something that we can do with our public art money.
In the next 15 days.
Yes.
Eva, can I ask a tack-on question that without getting us too off track? The city, I believe, had won or was working on getting grants to beautify Solano or do bulb outs on Solano, you know, to make it more pedestrian friendly. Am I remembering correctly? And it would seem maybe there's a potential dovetail situation here where the art could be integrated into whatever public works may be scheduled for Solano in terms of.
Yeah. And there's Solano Complete Streets. You may have heard of
Right,
it too.
yeah.
So there is, So there is an ultimate plan, and the Arts Committee is a piece of that as well. And perhaps whether it's the sculpture loan program or it's the item Jenny just mentioned too, that could be tied into that too. Yeah.
Okay, good to know going forward. Any other questions or comments on sculpture loan? Okay, then I think we move on to what I think is now 6-4 community project mural. Staff will provide an update.
Sure. I had the opportunity to chat with the artists, so Christian Munoz and Jimena Sosa, and they are still around, still interested, still available. The community project that was selected, and this is just to remind everyone, and it was the under $10,000 community project, and the artist selected 666 San Pablo, which is a veterinarian hospital, Hillview Veterinary Hospital, I believe, and went through the first steps. They've been, going along with the process, the first steps of doing community outreach, and they had a few different ways that they reached out to the public and got feedback on the stereotypes within our community, and even presented their artwork to the committee, and that got approved. And the next step was getting into a contract with the building owners and the city and the artist as well. And we got a call kind of at the 11th hour when we were voting on it, and the veterinary hospital said, what would happen if we sold the building in, like, say 2 or 3 years? And so there was a discussion amongst the arts committee that perhaps, well, just the definition of a mural and what the expectation is for the longevity of it and what that means. And so that kind of, and then COVID hit and it's kind of stopped. That being said, I did talk with the veterinary hospital. They're only open Thursdays at this point, so they've been hard to get a hold of, but we got a hold of them, and they still are interested. They don't have any, plans to sell the building right away. However, they don't know what's going to happen. So I think the same issue and conversation needs to be had about if we're going forward with it, that which the committee has said that they want to go forward with it, that it might not be a 30-year, it might be, but if a new owner comes in and decides that they no longer want the mural, and that can all be written into the contract as well. So that's where we are at this point. Again, staff being the recreation department is focused on providing essential services to the community. And so there's not a lot of time, unfortunately, to dedicate to these projects, but I think it's good to refresh our memories. We have a new member, we'll have a couple new members as well, filling Zebo and Jenny's seats. So I think it's good to continue the conversation. And at this point, here we are in September. It's probably not weather-wise, smoke-wise, it's not going to happen this year, but maybe it could happen spring of next year is kind of what we're looking at. And it still does need to go to council for approval after we get the contract going. So that's an update on that. Any questions?
Sounds like the best thing is to circle back maybe in another month or two and just see where things stands and go from there.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions or concerns on the community art project?
It looks like there's a public comment again.
Okay, public comment.
Jeremiah, go ahead.
He's muted, maybe.
We'll just have to catch him for the next item.
Jeremiah, you're muted.
let's move on to the next item and we can catch
Okay.
them on the next comment.
Okay, looks like it's 6.5 Art Community Center Gallery. Member Black will provide an update.
Hi, at the moment, obviously, we're closed. The show that went up in January is still up. Was supposed to come down in April and we closed just before that. So she's still up. I'm hoping at some point we can get her artwork back to her, but she's very patient. It's not a problem. I've talked to all the artists, Jean Wetsky, who is the teapot painter, and Linda Wong, who has the floating boxes, and Moonji Picarini has the graphic drawings. They're all still on board for their shows. I'm assuming we will continue on. The schedule may change a little bit because Jean was possibly sending some of her work in October somewhere else, but I don't think that's going to be an issue for us because who knows when we're going to open. But everybody was certainly willing to stay with us. We obviously have not put out a request for new submissions. I don't really think we need to do that till probably the beginning of the year, and then we would only need one more to fill out because the way it looks, it doesn't look like, I don't know when we're going to reopen, and so I don't know how many more things we will need for next year. So I assume you don't have any information on that, Ava, as to when we're going to open again.
At this point, we don't. Yeah, it's not in the immediate future, and we kind of just are waiting until the county state orders allow us to open. Currently, the city isn't running any programs out of the community center, so it remains closed.
No, I know that. I know that the library is allowing people to pick up books, but that's not, you don't go into the library, you order them and they.
Exactly. So we've allowed that a small number of staff can be on that side of the building and no public is allowed to enter the facility. But yeah, unfortunately, nothing, as soon as we do, you'll be the second to hear.
Lovely. I just, wanted you to know that people still are looking forward to having their shows, and we are still committed to them. And so we have 3 shows set up for whenever we get started again. And then whenever we can, and whether there is time, we need to put out information to get more submissions for when that follows. But my sense at the moment is that we're a long way from that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for just staying in touch with the artists and keeping them engaged. And it's great to hear that they're still committed. We just don't know when their show will be.
Great. That's it.
Questions, comments on the gallery? No.
Chair, if I can try to bring the public in again. Jeremiah, are you there?
Let's keep going.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. 6.6 Black Lives Matter art project. Jenny and I can provide a quick update. Hopefully received in advance of the meeting a draft questionnaire, a draft template report, and some kind of general thoughts on next steps. I think more than anything, Jenny, feel free to add what you would like. We would love to have the committee's feedback on the questionnaire, which comes a lot from us, but we did receive some input from a handful of community members and the consultants that have been working with the Social and Economic Justice Committee. We've done a little bit of research on our own, probably not as much as this project warrants or that we would like to do. I think we've both been struggling with time commitments. This is a rich vein of material. It's an important subject. And so we wanted to come back to you to get your feedback on the questionnaire, your thoughts on a potential timeline. We need to report back to council. We need to think about when do we actually go out with the questionnaire, or if we do, who else should we consult? Who should be involved in this project? And in general, your kind of big picture thoughts on a budget, type of art. Your thoughts on the process. So with that, I'd open it up real quick to your questions and concerns if you've already looked at the documents, and we can go from there. Or we could walk over the documents, whatever. Aaron?
I would appreciate just a brief overview. I've kind of looked through the documents as they are, but I'd like to know a little bit of sort of the feedback that you're getting so far, and kind of what is the kind of main, in an ideal world, where would we like to see this thing move towards? What direction do we want to see this move towards?
I think for a more detailed and textured historical context, I'd look to staff to provide details, but in general, City Council directed the Arts Committee to look into this project after some discussions, I believe it was in June. And so Jenny and I formed a subcommittee to take this up, to look at the project, and initially to solicit community feedback. So we started to draft a questionnaire, thinking that would be a mechanism to use in addition to interviews or working directly with community members. We wanted to keep it brief and fairly simple, but also fairly opening to solicit kind of honest feedback and not dictate answers, but let people speak for themselves. The initial feedback, I'd say, perhaps the most important came from the consultants that are working with the Social and Economic Justice Committee, and they felt that the timing is not right to send out the survey at this time. I have not been attending those meetings, but apparently they've been fairly raw. There's been a lot of energy. It's a very sensitive topic. And so the general consensus from who we've talked to so far has been to maybe continue to refine the questionnaire. Now is not the right time to send it out. But we've been thinking that that could be something, perhaps with the city's guidance, working with the Social and Economic Justice Committee, we could find a timeline that might work well for both committees or for the city in generally, something that will do justice to the project, but not inflame tensions or sensitivities if those are particularly raw at this moment. So I'd say that's kind of really where we are. I think the project would benefit from additional research, looking at other examples, what other communities have done or are planning to do, what types of budgets those were, how they involve the community or not. We just haven't gotten there yet. And I think, Jenny, please, jump in where you want. I think we really benefit from outside input, right? We've been looking at this for a month, 2 months.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I think that one of the things that we both tried to do is do a little bit of research about what artists of color locally could help work on this project if a project came about. But really, I think we sat back on our heels when we realized this is the Social and Economic Justice Committee wasn't ready. They just kept telling me they're not ready to do any of this work yet and we're really their tool. I mean, I think we're really the tool of the council, the tool of the committee. I think we've done a pretty good job of getting started. And that's sort of where I have to bow out. That's where I leave it.
I mean, the very first thing that comes to mind on this is a quote from Dr. King where he says, it's always the right time to do right.
Yeah, true.
So the idea that that this shouldn't be acted upon because it's the moment when the issue is the most visible or the most raw, seems like that may be exactly the time for art to come in and play a role in that tension or in that community discussion.
Okay. Peter?
Oh, I agree with what Aaron just said. My question to you, I guess, is how do you know when the time is right to move ahead? Who is going to determine that? And it kind of gets to the other point I think that people were asked about is who's actually running this? Who's in you had mentioned that you felt it was like the Social and Economic Justice Commission, that they were, it was kind of up to them to move things forward. I know that this was largely at the instigation of Mayor Pilch. He wanted to see something happen. He wanted to see it happen fairly quickly. It was kind of handed off to us and to the Social and Economic Justice Commission. But what's the mechanism that the city is using to bring these, not only the diverse voices of the community together, but the diverse departments of the city, so that there can be like a focused project that is capable of gathering some steam and focus to move it forward through the mechanisms of the city.
So I think the suggestions about the timing are fair and they make sense. I would have a concern along those lines because Albany is such a small community, and from what we've heard on one hand, and Peter, this will, I think, eventually get to answering your question. From what we've heard or seen on one hand, you have a committee that's having very vociferous discussions. And I have not taken it upon myself to attend those meetings and sync up. I have not synced the Arts Committee. Jenny, I don't think together we've synced the Arts Committee with the Social and Economic Justice Committee discussions. My concern is that if you have a small city and you have one hand going this way and the other comes out and launches a survey about art around this topic, there's a risk for confusion, inconsistencies, inefficiencies, whatever you might say. In a city this small, it doesn't make sense to me to not have an organization there. So where we are right now, and Peter, I'm going to try to answer your question, is it's not entirely clear, I would say, who's driving the bus. I think formally we could go out if council approved and start doing, I think, our end of this project immediately, or once council says yes, go forward. I don't know if that would be that beneficial for the reasons we're citing now. And so I think where we stand, and Jenny, correct me where I'm wrong, is going back to council and in a sense, providing a document like we've provided to you, explaining the context that we're explaining to you, and get guidance from them as kind of the formal executive body of the city. When, where, how would you like us to best proceed? I see us in the Social and Economic Justice Committee in a sense as both committees, right? The city council needs to provide direction or coordinate or sync those efforts. So that's where I see us. So I don't know if I answered both of your questions, but that's what I'm trying to do. And I think in a sense, Jenny, are trying to say, we think for now, for the time we can invest, this is the best we can do at this moment. Now we need further direction.
I think that's
turning it back
true.
to council then?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, Peter, that we have, if we had struck while the iron was hot, like if we just gotten out there and done a Black Lives Matter mural or a thing on the street right in front of the police station, at the moment where that was the right thing to do, where and other cities had done it, that would have been very much of the moment and would have been very, very cool. And I don't think that the city would have, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we've gotten public money for that, because unless this whole city government got on board and said, yes, we're going to shut San Pablo Avenue down, and we're going to get the paint, and we're going to get the rollers, and we're going to get the crew out there, and we're going to put this on the street, and we're going to let it dry. I mean, I think it would have taken that kind of coordination from the city. I actually wish we had done it, but we didn't. So that moment is gone, it seems to me. That was a moment, and that has passed. So trying to do something that displays somehow Albany's history from racism to anti-racism, something like that gives an overview, that seems to me to be it's not timely, but it's a more, it's a deeper project and one that might not be so obvious. You know, we talked about this, I think, at our last meeting, the fact that there was a John Birch Society on Solano Avenue, that there was that kids who go to high school are constantly saying that they're harassed by police, especially kids of color, that it's a thing. You know, we have a thing. We have a reputation as a racist city that we would like to change. And if if art and people more involved in public art can tell me I'm just totally wrong, but it seems to me that if we came together with a committee, we didn't see each other as opposing, and the city said, yes, go with God, do the art project, we could get enough actors from all parts of the city to do a project, to actually do the project together. That would be a very meaningful thing. And that, you know what I'm saying? We have kids and cops and firefighters and grandparents and everybody out there going, yeah, this is something we figured out what to do. Now we're going to do it. Everybody get in here and start doing, you know?
I'm just speaking mostly to process. So does the
Right.
Does the council understand that it is the one driving the bus, or that the Arts Committee at least would prefer that they be driving the bus? And as a Social Economic Justice Commission, do they have a sense of what the council's role is? In other words, are all these different people, are they in sync with, or are you in the process of getting everybody in sync?
I would say, Peter, that no, we're not in sync.
Absolutely not.
And if I were to be frank, I mean, even, and Liam, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that if we wanted to go out and start running with this independently, the Arts Committee, I think we could. I think we do need to get formal city council approval. I think we need to report back, and then they need to say, go forth with an RFP. That's my understanding. I think we could do that. I think we have concerns about doing that without syncing up, or at least not being in sync in terms of timeline with the Social and Economic Justice Committee or any other city priorities or initiatives that there might be. So I think we could go forward independently, so to speak. I don't know if it'd be the best course of action. But my understanding is that we need to report back to City Council with what we know, and that they would give us the formal green light or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to add a little bit.
Some money, correct? Eva is like $6,000, I think, something like that, $6,500.
That was for the original project. So originally when it came about, it was the Black Lives Matter mural, if you will, on the street, and they had earmarked $6,500 from the general fund. The motion that came out of that meeting was a little bit more generic, based on public comment that it was more of, I think they called it an art project. A dollar amount wasn't associated with that. They know that the Arts Committee does have a fund. So the idea was that Arts Committee would propose a budget, and then the details could be worked out on that. I wanted to provide a little bit more context too of just the Social and Economic Justice Committee and what they've been working on. The city did hire a contractor. She's fabulous. She's worked with the school district before, and she's provided, for the SEJC committee, she's provided a ton of context and has started them working on an equity inclusion plan, so that they're really looking at this as a whole for the city. And they've formed some subcommittees, and what I've gotten as far as a timeline, that it could be anywhere up to a year before they're able to really present to council a comprehensive plan. While initially the urgency of a Black Lives Matter mural was present, I think what happened is the SEJC committee had several listening sessions, as well as council. Mayor Pilch also held a listening session, and the idea or the feedback from the community was that this might not be the right time. It might not be the right direction. It might not, that a lot more thought needed to go into it, just because it is such a sensitive issue. And I think that's where they're taking the direction. And then the subcommittee consists of Member Holland and Chair Schneider, that they presented the great questions that they came up with, and they reacted and were on it to the contractors. And the contractors did, I think we presented that at one of the recent meetings, that that was the, let's really dovetail these two processes together, because they really saw it as one. And one suggestion even was, and whether this is the result that comes out of it or not, was perhaps the art piece is what comes as a conclusion to look at all the work that the city has done. And here's this beautiful art piece that incorporates aspects of it. So that's a little bit more context from the city side. And then the other from the commission or the committee side is that we're in this weird time where we have one new member. We're going to have two new members probably at the October meeting. And then in January, we'll have 3 new council members who may or may not bring in new committee members. So, and with Jenny being on the subcommittee, we're losing half of the subcommittee. And I know that Chair Schneider's time is limited. And so what they really worked on is a wonderful piece that kind of and Chair Schneider is not going anywhere. He will be a part of it. But to hand to the next subcommittee to say, here's the work we've done. Here's the research we've done. You know, let's wait a little bit. Let's see what the SEJC comes up with and how we can be a part of that process.
The one thing I would add real quick, Eva, for everyone as we talk about this is that I do think, as like I said, there should be some syncing or at least mutual awareness between the committees of the work. I don't know if the art project has to be framed as kind of the resolution or the end piece of the other process. I think there's a danger there. You might get word cheesy art or not, something that might not be really authentic. So I think it's possible. And I think there should be mutual kind of recognition of the timing. I don't know if the art project has to be seen as the resolution of the other discussion. I just want to put that on the table.
If I can add to that, I would also say that there's the possibility of thinking about the process as relevant to the artwork or even as part of the work, as opposed to thinking about the endpoint or the product of that process as arriving at the work. And there's longstanding trends within contemporary art over the last several decades to think about artworks that are more socially engaged or more communally based or more ephemeral or more process based, and that aren't simply arriving at the point of like a mural or an object per se. And my understanding from our conversation, Ava, is that there may be some limitations in terms of what gets considered art in Albany that might restrict that. But I do think that, especially if we're thinking about working and collaborating with other committees, that there may be a way to open up that process and bring in an artist or artists, either from the community or from the county or from the region or even nationally, whose practice is very much involved with looking at processes and looking at community dialogue and incorporating their creativity into those sorts of processes as well.
Aaron, do you know what type of timeline you're looking at when you think of recruiting an artist, either through an RFP or informal context? I think through the city, you always need to do an RFP, more or less, I would assume. You know, finding the right person and getting work going, is that 3 months, 6 months, a year? What's kind of the time frame, something like that?
I think given the moment, I think you could get a response in a strong response in under 3 months from an RFP. But I think 3 months is a reasonable timeline to propose something, or at least to initiate a conversation. And the interesting thing about proceeding that way of putting out a kind of call is that we as the committee don't have to provide the solution. Like, we don't have to say, this is the art project that we're interested in doing. Who can we find to come in and do this art project? What we can say is, here's our city and the circumstances and the conversations that we're having. Is there an artist that can provide a creative solution or some creative input? And then we have material that we can go forward to the council or to other committees or to our citizens and say, here are some proposals. What do you think about these proposals? What's the input that you have in these proposals? one thing that I find is that when you survey an audience without having something tangible to point to, and you ask them how they feel about it, some people will imagine the ideal and they'll critique it based on their ideal version. But some people are going to imagine the worst case scenario and tell you they hate it. And it's still in their head, right? It's still caught up in their thinking. So it doesn't necessarily bring you good survey results when you do that kind of focus group.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as much as we can support proposals from artists who are already invested in this kind of work or interested in doing this kind of work, and then take those proposals and kind of sift through them and talk with other people about them, I think we'll get some really valuable input.
Ah, that's great.
I think it's an interesting potential avenue. Do you know, I mean, getting into the really practical level of this, do you know of existing RFPs along these lines that would lend themselves to potential adaptation? If we wanted to go to council and say, look, there's two broad avenues maybe we could pursue.
Mm-hmm.
Here's A, here's B. I think like you're mentioning, not just in surveys, but if we could prevent the more concrete options we can present, the more clear it will be for them and the clearer the path forward. Jenny, I don't know about you, but I would welcome any kind of concrete suggestions anyway for existing language or projects.
For sure.
I can definitely do some work and gather those and bring a few to the committee.
Okay.
That'd be lovely.
Any other questions, concerns, other feedback for what we've put together? Cheryl?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Anyone? I think if anyone does, I know sometimes these things are better communicated in writing, or you can express perhaps more nuanced thoughts, but bullet points, other relevant materials, examples, I think we would both welcome them, and it would help us to put something together and have a better idea going to council.
I would also be happy to volunteer to be on that subcommittee as well.
Yay.
That'd be excellent. Anyone else also like to hop on board? Silence.
Nope.
Thank you, Aaron.
Peter, where'd you go?
Does anyone want to make a motion to add Member Gatch to the subcommittee?
I move.
Before
I
you
would like
make
to
a
move.
motion, can we
Go ahead.
allow public comment, please?
Okay,
Okay.
before, sure.
Of course.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm hanging with you guys. I just wanted to point out, following from Jenny's comments, that poetry is very well poised to address issues of white privilege and white supremacy in our community. It's also, it could be considered a form of public art. So let's think about literature and narrative in terms of this dialogue for the committee. We could do workshops at the library. We could do collaborations with local poets in terms of Black Lives Matter, and we would get contemplative, thoughtful, historied poetry out of it. That's all.
Thank you. I think those are great ideas. In parallel, I would mention, I don't know how closely this could be considered art or dovetail. I know Berkeley just launched an oral histories project connected to kind of urban, it's with the emphasis on the urban. And thinking of the recordings and some of the sessions that have happened in the city recently, there's a lot of material there. It's not literary per se, but if someone were to do close readings of what people are saying, how they're talking, what the themes are, that could also be potentially very interesting. And it could be a deep vein material for re-elaboration, some type of artistic presentation, documentary, etc. So I think there's a lot of options out there that could
yeah, I mean, there's a long literary tradition of this. So just everyone should keep thinking about words as art as well.
Peter?
Well, two things to Becca's point about poetry being a form of public art. I certainly believe that's true, but the city has not quite accepted that. You know, the Fall in the Haiku program was originally funded by the city, and then as a result of their interpretation of the public arts ordinance, we kind of lost that funding, and now we are generously supported by the Albany Community Foundation instead. So it's unclear to what extent poetry can be shoehorned into the idea of public art. The other thing was, I think, Jenny, you brought this up in an email that the city or something was looking to document the process of the Black Lives Matter mural being filmed by the Albany Film Fest people. So that was, so I did refer that to the Albany Film Fest, and I think through them it's going back to Jeremy.
Okay. I would say that was a private desire of mine. I saw a great documentary made by a young woman who's from the School of Journalism.
Oh, that was from you. Oh,
yeah,
I didn't realize that.
That was from me. And she was living on the street. She's been living in a van on Harrison Street. And I happen to live at the end of Harrison Street. So I'm very familiar with the van culture down there. And I loved her documentary. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to have a documentary about this project and have the documentary be part of the project?
Oh, okay. I thought it was kind of an official request of some sort.
No, it's like Brandon and I talked about it. And really, it's so good to have other people's input because we just have what we have.
Yeah. Well, it has been passed on to the film
great.
fest
I'm so glad.
Are in touch
very,
with
very
Jeremy.
glad.
So whatever happens, I guess.
Yeah, because it would be really a great way for the whole community to see the process.
I don't want to dive into it here. It's getting late, but as we move forward with this, I don't think the process versus object question has to be completely black or white. And I would imagine there's got to be the process can result in an object or something that would be able to trigger the appropriate funding. I think that's something, obviously, with city's guidance and in help, we could probably find a creative solution there that might be able to allow both.
For sure. So I would like to move that.
Oh, wait.
Member
We
Gatch.
do have one more
have
public comment. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
Public comment?
Thank you, Clerk Ann. Yes, so a few points of interest here. I believe poetry, is art. It's linguistic art or word art. Shakespeare, if nobody thinks that the city doesn't think Shakespeare was an artist, I don't know what's going on. So I will use my 3 minutes at a city council meeting to make sure that, poetry is art, because that's kind of ridiculous that it's not art. Also, Marcus the artist. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Marcus the artist. He walks around Albany and he paints canvases. And I've got a bunch of his artwork. He's just given to myself and Elaine. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. He's so talented and he doesn't get recognized. So if you're going to have a Black or African artist do anything in Albany regarding this mural, you guys got to include Marcus the artist. Also, some lady on this committee was mentioning about 5 minutes ago, high school students get harassed by the police. She made some comments where I want to make sure the city knows that what she said isn't really in depth of our city, because we're not a racist city. Okay. Like she kind of intended, the police attacked the high school students, which makes us, but we're not a racist city. So, and she spoke on actors. We need to get actors involved to appear at these mural events. What do you mean actors? Everything that lady said is so fake. Okay. We're not a racist city and we don't need actors. We don't need to pretend like the city's doing something for Black Lives Matter movement. Okay. It's not a show. That's what the whole economic justice committee has been, social economics been talking about. It's not a show for the city to say, oh, we did something. It's not just to look good. It's to actually care about people. And another thing is it politically incorrect? Black Lives Matter? Black? Because there's all sorts of skin tones with black, light black, dark black. You know, it should it just say culture matters, or all lives matter, right? And I understand we're getting to this point to where it all stems from the police brutality, right? The police are targeting Africans, or spotlight on this. So yeah, I agree. Work with the city because it's an all-in-one thing, but also we need to take action in the moment and get this done. Because here it is almost a year later, which is kind of like we're procrastinating instead of taking action in the moment. But it's also nice that we're being cautious to do it right. If it's going to take a year to do this, we better do it right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for the public comment.
Okay.
Can I make a motion? Can I move that Member Gatch be added to the subcommittee?
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor, or we have to do roll call, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Member Holland,
Yes.
Member Black,
yes.
Member Gatch,
Yes.
Member Goodman. Peter, you're on mute. I think it was a yes, but yes. Okay. Member Rose?
Yep.
And I am also in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on real quick, last item, we have 6-7. I know it's getting late, I'll be quick. In working on this project, I've also thought about this before. I've thought at times it could be useful to have additional hands on deck, not for a lot, but to do things like research, or if there's potentially we ever want to go after a grant or different grant projects, to have someone to help with that process. And so I thought, would there be any interest at some point to have some type of internship or fellowship program? And I have in mind either an advanced undergraduate or a graduate student that's interested in public policy and art, or public art, or some theme that we deal with that could help. I really thought of mostly research or grant writing. Ideally, it would be a paid position, very modestly. Don't know where the funds would come from. I know the city's has a challenging budget right now, but just something, if there's something that people would be open to down the line, if they would have any interest in, someone maybe working 15 to 20 hours a month or something like that, to do a little research, find other examples in other communities. If we're looking at the ordinance or similar things, look at how other cities do it, how they describe it, etc. So I know this isn't on our work plan. We can't work on it immediately, but I wanted to run it up the flagpole if that's something that might be of potential interest to the committee. Very informally at this point.
I think this is an excellent idea. One of the hats that I wear at California College of the Arts is as a student internship coordinator, to get student interns involved in projects. And yes, they absolutely should be compensated and paid. But I think you could certainly find plenty of really qualified undergraduates or graduates who could take on the responsibilities that you described.
Okay.
Wow, great.
Other feedback, concerns, problems you might see?
Would this be a paid position?
And I think that would be ideal. That's what I had in mind. I mean, they're working, and I think you would attract more students, right? If you were able to do that.
Where would the money come from?
So that's something to work out. I think I earlier did really quick math. It wouldn't be a tremendous amount of money, but I don't know, either from the city budget, from the arts budget. I don't know if some of the philanthropic organizations would fund something like this, if there's grant money for something like this. I haven't gone there yet.
Okay.
I was thinking first, I mean, if there's no interest in the committee, it's not worth pursuing. If there's some, then we could start to look into it.
I think it would be, I think you could find a student who could perform, for example, the model at CCA is 90 hours over the course of a semester is what a student has to complete in order to get credit in addition to the compensation that comes from the internship. And generally speaking, most students are working at between $15 an hour and $20 an hour in the capacity of the internship, depending on the field that they're entering into. So if we were thinking about it as a semester-long position, we're looking at something like $1,400 to $2,000 for a student intern over the course of about 15 weeks.
Brandon, what are some of the things you see the intern doing?
Like if I think of research, I think, when I started working on the Black Lives Matter project, I had a quick bibliography of about 1 jillion articles that I wanted to read and look through. I quickly realized I can't do that, even trying to skim very quickly. It'd be great to have someone look at that, provide quick summaries. More importantly, looking at what other communities are doing. I think it's obviously very beneficial. I think we already do this to the extent possible, look at what local communities are doing, but getting, even a broader perspective if we possible, and have little project reports, let's say on 10, 20 communities, what are they doing in this art area? We haven't done it since I've been on the committee that I'm aware of, but even doing more robust, perhaps grant proposals. I really don't know realistically if we have the time. I don't know if I would, but I can imagine that'd be a scenario where, you write a couple of drafts, you need data here, you need examples here, you need someone to write as well. Just kind of plugging in those, I would say, supplementary gaps. Those are the things that I've quickly thought of at this very initial stage. Those are things that I think, at least I struggle to find time to do a lot of research or anything generative, in terms of writing an RFP, writing a grant, et cetera. It might be my own poor time management or, inertia, but it's something I thought it could be potentially be a win-win. It helps us, helps the students, you get new ideas, et cetera.
I think it's a great idea. The problem is, I don't know where the money's coming from. We wanted to have money for the Poet Laureate program, and it was very hard to come up with that money, and it wasn't even close to what Aaron was talking about. So,
Aaron, I think it's a great point, Cheryl. It's obviously, a huge limitation. Do any of the academic programs provide like joint funding for something like this? Is it like a cost share?
There's a program that used to run at CCA that may be on hold currently because of the whole post-COVID financial circumstances. But there is a program through CCA's Center for Art and Public Life that would provide matching funds. So they would provide half, and then in our case, the city would provide half of that amount. So it would defray costs there. I don't know offhand of programs that are capable of supporting something like that, but another possibility would be for, and again, I don't know exactly how this would work, but some arts organizations can apply for grants for funding for working with artists or working with interns that would then go and do an external project. So for example, an external project with the city of Albany. So they would be applying for the funding on their end and essentially paying the student intern, but the project would be paired with Albany City, and Albany City would be doing the placement.
Okay. Peter?
A question for Eva. Does the city have an intern program?
No, I wouldn't say that there's a program. Some departments have had interns. The recreation department has never had an intern per se.
Two quick thoughts, one local and one more broad. One of the goals we have on this committee is also to further or try to facilitate economic development. And I'm wondering if you had a fellow or an intern whose part of their work was kind of slanted in that direction, if the Solano Avenue Association or some of the merchants would be willing to pitch in some funds to help make that happen in a vein that it's, ultimately helping to promote the arts on Solano or in Albany, make it a destination, et cetera. That might be something we could look into. If you can do something like this for, let's say, $2,000 a semester, asking them to put some funds up, it doesn't seem that impossible. Personally, my first job out of college was actually a year-long fellowship in Sonoma County with a local government agency, and I can reach out to them and see, get some information on the ins and outs and what works, what doesn't, best practices, et cetera.
Yeah, I agree. I think, one of the ideal models for something like this would be to provide some sort of in-kind compensation. So for example, if we brought someone in as an artist in residence and gave them a space like an empty storefront or an empty office somewhere, and they were able to use that space as a studio or as a base of operations for doing the kind of work that you're talking about, then that level of compensation, especially in the Bay Area, could be really valuable to an artist, where space often comes at a premium. That allows an artist to have a working arrangement and relationship with the community that they're operating in. And in turn, they can be doing some of the tasks that you're talking about in the internship.
A great idea.
I just want to say that I think that's a fabulous idea.
Okay. Excellent. Any other thoughts, questions? It sounds like Eva, I'm aware we can't work on this formally immediately. It's not on our work plan. But maybe there's some informal work that can be done, and we can kind of inch our way forward in these next couple of meetings, and then after that, see what's really feasible, and then what specifically something like this could look like.
Unfortunately, because it's not on the work plan, it really does have to wait until the 2021-23. We chatted a little bit about it, and I looked into, we missed the deadline to amend your 2-year work plan, just passed, essentially. It's beginning of October, so it wouldn't be able to get approved. So yeah, and unfortunately, then it means it pushes it back to the next one, which is fine. It's fine to push it back. It's only about a year away if you look at it that way.
Okay. And on a personal level, informally, I will do some more research and basic due diligence. Let's put it that way. Won't be on our formal agenda. I think any other questions, comments?
There's 2 public comments.
Oh, okay, here we go. Public comment.
Hi, thank you. If we're able to get money for this somehow, do we need to go through the city council and wait an entire year? I know maybe I'll donate something. Also, I think this is a great idea, Chair. This is all about creating jobs, right? I mean, we're in a down economy right now, and this is a job for somebody. I do highly recommend a student, of course, Albany High School senior. Maybe they can get some college credit. I know from these past city council meetings, we have some outstanding seniors. We have outstanding students coming from Albany High School, very intelligent, and we're so lucky that they participate in these meetings, and that we're lucky they participate as chairs on these councils, as student chairs. That's so wonderful. So if we could keep encouraging that kind of behavior from our Albany schools, even get into the middle school. But yeah, I will push on the next city council meeting. I will motion and push for Albany to have an intern program. I think that's a great thing for intern programs, because they could start here and then move to recreation, and we could utilize an intern in multiple departments if we need to. So I think it's great, because this is almost like a working scholarship, right? They're not just getting free money, they're actually working. They're working and learning, getting job experience and some money. So this is a great situation for everybody, because as the city's getting work done, the student is getting experience and money to pay for books. And it's only right, $1,500. That's not a lot. So I think this is a great idea, and I'm going to do everything I can to help create this job and help create a Albany a better place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hi again. I just wanted to say that the Academy of American Poets has a Poet Laureate Fellowship, which was started in 2019, that provides $50,000 to $100,000 for poet laureates for programming. I did not apply because the time frame wasn't right for my laureateship, but this would be something to work with a future poet laureate on, or could provide some significant amount of partnership with another community. Some poet laureates of towns worked with people in other towns, cross-country collaborations. Anyway, it's a big source of money. I'm looking online. I can't see what's going on with it in 2021. They may have paused it, like so many of these things, but I reckon it would be back online in 2022, if not 2021. So that could provide a lot of support to the Poet Laureate position. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there other public comment?
That's it.
Okay, does anyone else have any other questions, concerns, comments? Is there a motion to adjourn? I think we're there.
You don't need a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Future items.
oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay. Anyone have any future items they'd like to put on the agenda?
Yeah, I will think a bit more about the both the Poet Laureate program and this Spring into Haiku. So please schedule that. I think it just needs to be one item.
Eva, I don't think we know exactly what it will be yet, but the Black Lives Matter art project will need to be discussed. Any other items, requests?
We can let you know later anyway.
Yep.
So if things happen to move on something.
Yeah.
Anything.
Our fingers crossed.
Anything.
Yes. Okay.
Oh,
Right.
Erin, can we get an email for you or contact information?
Sure.
I can send that out.
Would you send that out? Thanks. Erin.
Yeah, I'll send it. I'll send one out, and just know that it will be changing as we get a couple new members too, but I'll send out the committee list.
So Eva, how many seats are open now? Is it one
At
or
this
two?
point, there's just one at Zibo's seat, and then once Jenny's time comes to an end on September 30th, there would be another one. So hopefully
They
both
haven't. So Jenny's seat hasn't been picked yet. There's no.
No, and that one, it can only be posted, I think, about 14 days before. So that one should be posted here anytime soon. And hopefully
okay.
that person could be selected by the October meeting. So we
And
potentially could have
the other
two
seat
people.
is selected by the school? By the school?
Yes, Zibo's seat was the school district.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people don't apply for that. The school system itself selects them.
It does go through the school district, and then they tell us who their nomination is.
Okay.
Yeah, or appointed.
If I think my seat expires, right? And so if I were to continue, I'd have to apply.
So everyone will be required to reapply at the end of this term. And that's how I was mentioning, there'll be 3 new council members too. So they'll get to look at the applicants and pick the new committee. So hopefully you guys are all on it.
It's not an easy out.
Don't you
anything
dare
else?
try.
Yes.
Anyone? Okay. And Eva, Liam, thank you for staffing. Thank you for staying late. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, all committee members. And
Yeah.
Thank
be in
you.
touch. And thank you, Jenny. Thank you again.
I miss you.
Live long,
You
prosper.
should take a screenshot.
Live long and prosper.
Yes.
Bye, you guys. Love you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jenny.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.